Social anxiety will ruin your life if you make three mistakes that I have in mine. And I've had it for at least 45 years of the 52 I've been alive that I can remember, ever since I was a little kid. Now, how do I know I had social anxiety even when I was 7? Well, when I went to school, when I would be around other people, I would notice right away that if there was a conversation going on among two or three people, I just couldn't get myself to join in. My heart would start going a little bit and I would not join in. Now, sometimes if there was a game going on or if there was gym, it kind of naturally you were joining in. So when you're in an activity, yeah, you're communicating with the other kids, and that was really great. But when things went back to normal, I found myself kind of staying by myself, and I noticed this even when I would be waiting for the bus at the corner to go to school. And again, there would be a group of people. I'm not calling them the cool people. I'm just saying a group of kids, and they were talking, just having a conversation. And I just never walked up there really and joined in. Again, I would kind of feel my heart going a little bit because I really wanted to, but I just didn't. I just didn't. And I got picked on sometimes. And one of the mistakes that I made was not immediately defending myself from a bully. If you have social anxiety like I do, you have to defend yourself right away. Don't wait, because it just gets worse and people don't just stop, especially when you're a kid, but even as an adult. And this can go in the workplace too. And don't just accept it. Um, that's one mistake that I made, was not nipping things in the bud right away. I I didn't really accept it, but if I was getting bullied, I didn't stop the person right away and, say anything. I didn't say, knock it off, who the heck are you? I didn't do anything that was effective. So things went on and on and on. And for those of us who have social anxiety, we have trouble reading people. I know I do. Verb expressions, not really verbal, not what you say, reading the expressions on faces or eyes, eye movements, or how your body is, posturing. I have trouble reading people, and I think a lot of people with social anxiety do. And so I wasn't able to defend myself right away. Now, finally, I did. So that mistake I rectified on my own. But, my advice to you is, if you're being bullied, you have to stand up to the bully. You just do, even as an adult. It might even be in a work setting. It's not just when we're kids that we can be bullied. It can be at work. And you have to defend yourself. And those bullies may even, say something about you to the bosses. Maybe they'll say something about your breath smelling or this or that, and you'll get called in. And I've had this happen to me, and now I do defend myself. And I just don't care at this point. But for a long time, I just let it happen. And what happens is it festers, and you feel it, and then you feel it when you get home. Even when you're young, you feel it when you get home, and sometimes you don't tell your parents, right? Sometimes you're just keeping it to yourself. And don't think going to a therapist is going to help you when you have social anxiety, except for the medicine. The medicine works, but it doesn't cure social anxiety. It doesn't make you feel calm. Yeah, it can for a little bit of time, but it doesn't get rid of it. There is no cure for having anxiety, or specifically in this case, social anxiety, when you're around other people. There just isn't. Or if you know you have to face people or face your workplace, if you're interacting with people, or maybe you interact with children, if you're in a school situation, and you might feel anxious the day before, the night before, and it can make you not want to go to work. And so one of the other mistakes I've made is self-isolating in that situation and not just facing it. Just like facing a bully to put an end to a bad situation, which is difficult for those of us with this condition. And let's call it that. It's a disease. It's in the brain. It's a condition we have. So is isolating yourself, because things just get worse. Things just get worse. If you miss one day of work because you're anxious to go there, the likelihood is you're going to miss the next day and the next day. And you got to pay your bills. And if people depend on you, you have to feed more than just yourself and keep a roof over your head for more than just yourself. You got to do it for your family. I've made that mistake of not going in as soon as I get over it, or if I miss one day, letting go to 2 days, or letting things fester, because it festers in your brain. And, because you're getting anxious, and it just gets worse. So that happens also. You gotta face the fear. You gotta face the fear. And I noticed, and the reason I say it never goes away from one day to the next, is when I was young, wrote a movie script with a friend of mine, and I actually called 67 agents, let's say, or people who could listen to you, and you would, pitch your idea for a movie back when there were, movies being made, right? Now, not so much. Now, look, I'm on YouTube now. And once I got into the rhythm of it, I could continue for those 67 calls. But the next day, I couldn't even start. I gave up. And so, people would say, well, just start again, do it over and over and over again. Well, I'm going to tell you the next mistake that I made, and things not to get into. If you have social anxiety, do not do this. It will really, it might shorten your life. I'm going to be totally honest. Is try to get into a profession where either you're selling something, you're a salesperson. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's too stressful. I was a headhunter when I was like 24. And what that is you call people at their jobs. I got the job to be able to do this. And you're trying to convince them to basically quit their job and take an interview for another job. And I went in day after day after day, and I had to get myself started each day because, I was nervous. But I kept doing it, and I was never able to do it. I was not comfortable on the phone. I got nervous. And even when I could do the first few things, like get the secretary to put me through to the people that worked there, that the company I was working for was trying to get to, go to another job, because that's how they made their money, is if they could move people to other companies because they needed qualified people. I felt very strange trying to convince somebody to leave their job and go to another one. That was not for me. But I didn't leave voluntarily. I actually didn't quit that job. I just got fired. And it was really strange at the end, because my boss, not the owner, but my boss actually said to me before they let me go that he was trying to get the owner to try to find another job for me. And the owner told him, well, he said to me, honestly, that he didn't see anything else that I could do that would bring value to the company. It's not like I had an accounting degree. And that's what I'm going to tell you also, is for us with social anxiety, and I'm trying to build a community here, because I think we can help each other and talk about our struggles together, because it's a struggle. Life is a struggle anyway, I know, but for us, I think it's more of a struggle when you're dealing with people, because we need people in this life just to make a living. And that is, look, my dad was an accountant. I should have gotten into accounting. I mean, something, I was good at numbers, and I didn't get into it. That's not what I did in college. I went and I was a history major, and I went to law school. And there were reasons that didn't work out that don't really have anything to do with social anxiety. Law school for me just didn't work out. But let me get back. And that is, become an accountant, become a plumber, something you can do with your hands where you don't have to talk to a lot of people, but you can earn a good living. Become an HVAC person, the person who fixes the air conditioners and the heaters. You can earn a great living doing that. These are things, a mechanic. I'm in a car right now, as you can see. Become a mechanic. I mean, dealing with things, not people, right? That to me would have been so much more comfortable to do for a living, and I didn't do it. And it's made my life very stressful. I went into, don't ask me why I did this now. My mom was a special ed teacher, and I, at around 30 years old, thought, hey, that would be a great idea. Go into teaching. They can get pensions, and you get the summers off, right? It seems like a great gig. Well, not if you have social anxiety disorder. It's not a good gig. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite of a good occupation for you. And for me, it was. Because, again, I couldn't read the room. I could go to school, I could pass their tests and rate lesson plans, and I could go in even to the class and teach the class. But was I really teaching the class? And I'm going to get into, was I really teaching the class when I'm physically there supposedly doing it, right? Well, there are 20 some kids in the class and there still are in schools. I was in the school district of Philadelphia. And I had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I didn't make it through a single year fully. before I was basically pulled out and put on administrative leave, and then they basically tried me again for the next year. I couldn't read the room. I couldn't class manage. How am I going to manage all of those behaviors? I'm not good at social cues. We're not good at social cues. So you're going to say, well, why was I doing it? Well, it paid a decent amount of money, and I needed to leave my parents' house at 30 years old. And that was a way to, quote, earn a living. So I did it, but I couldn't do it. Not effectively. I couldn't get the class to listen to me. They would be talking to each other. I would be looking up at the ceiling part of the time. I had trouble looking at the students. And they took advantage of that. Kids will take advantage of what they can, just like your own kids. When you have kids, they'll go until you set the boundaries. Well, for me, I call it too much information. If there are 20 to 25 kids, or even 15 kids in a class, that's too much information for me. There's too much happening. And I can't read the room. I can't figure out, oh, okay, say something here that will get everybody's attention, or end a side conversation. Or by the time I would do it, it would be too late anyway. And then I'd go home and call parents. And of course, that doesn't do anything, because the next day they're more concerned about their friends and talking to their friends anyway, and not listening to what you have to say as the teacher. If you don't have them to buy into, you teaching the lesson. So my advice is not to become a school teacher. To stay out of the high, what I consider high pressure for me, sales kind of jobs. If you have to go on the phone, even answering the phone was difficult. If it not answering the phone, just my phone, but if I was in an office, I worked, for instance, with a company my dad worked for. He got me the job, and for 9 months before I was going to be a salesman for this dental company, I picked orders, and I loved that part. For 9 months, I would go to different shelves, put things in a box, put tape on it, and it would get shipped out, and I could do it. And I could do it pretty quick. I actually liked that job. But I was there to eventually, learn the product and then become a salesperson for them. So I went up to Boston. Now I live in New Jersey, so I drove myself there, and I was there to be taught by one of their best salesmen. And I was just really answering the phones for the people in that office. And then, transferring the call, or writing down and telling that salesman what they wanted, or maybe redirecting a call, or maybe it was a complaint, what have you. But I would answer the phone, and I would be nervous on the phone, and the salesman picked that up, that I was nervous on the phone. Now you're going to say, these people are calling you. Why are you nervous picking up the phone? But I was. And it came across, and he told the owner, this isn't for Mike. This job isn't for Mike. He knew it. He knew it. And I wasn't mad at him. And the owner who let me go, they're obviously also, because, I wasn't going to make a good salesman. I'd be nervous on the phone. That was the consensus. He said, you'll be on to better things. He really, I like the man. I like the owner. And he really meant it. He really meant it. He did want the best for me, and he knew this job, which I was there for, wasn't going to do me any favors, wasn't going to do his company any favors, and would lose the money because they wouldn't get back the money they would have been paying to me at that point. So yeah, stay out of sales. And those are the 3 mistakes that I made that if I hadn't done them and had I chose another path, life would have been a lot easier. It really is that simple for people with social anxiety disorder. Again, it never goes away. Is it manageable? Well, we have to manage it, right? There's no choice, or else you die and you're on the streets. I mean, you have to just continue somehow, because what's the other alternative? But you can choose what you do. Now, I really can't choose what I do now. I still work with children, but I work one-on-one. But I am in a high stress environment, so it's not easy. And I've chosen though that path, and again, this is what not to do, because I have another 15 years to go before I'm going to be able to retire, at least, is don't make things harder for yourself than they have to be. You can make it in this world, I'm telling you, with social anxiety. It's just the decisions you make about what to do with your life as far as an occupation that sets the tone for that, and that can either help you enjoy it or not. So those are my tips. Take them for what they're worth. Please like the channel, please subscribe, and leave your comments below, and let's make this a community.